What's up? Pastor Brandon here. Welcome to Graceway's Parenting Conference. We are super stoked that you guys are joining us today. Kirk Martin from Celebrate Calm is here to share how we can eliminate those power struggles, yelling and arguing while building a close, trusting relationship with our kids. The conference is starting right now, so let's do this.
Come on, moms and dads, make some noise, y'all. Oh, clap your hands with us. We're gonna sing some songs together. Oh, come let us worship our King. Come let us bow at His feet. He has done great things. y'all. It's so good to see you, man. We get to lead worship tonight for the people who don't even make it in time for the first song because you're dropping off your kids. I mean, are you excited about that tonight, y'all? Okay, we'll give you a second to wake up. Listen, let's take a moment. Let's give it up for the facility team who cleaned up the parking lot. Thank y'all. We very much appreciate it, man. If you are here for the very first time, man, we are honored that you guys are here. Let's continue worshiping together. We're going to sing a few more songs, all right? Yay. Sing. Who will stand against the Lord? And no one can, and no one will. And who will stand against the King? And no one can, and no one will. Stand against the Lord. No one can, no one will. Sing, who can stand? Who can stand against the King? No one can, no one will. So we put our trust in you. Yes, we put our hope in you. Say, you will deliver. You're a provider. I find my victory in you. Forever victorious. Forever we win. I find my victory in. Say you will deliver. You will deliver. You're a provider. I find my victory in you. And forever victorious. Forever we win. And I find my victory in. Say victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Oh, victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to Him. Oh, yeah. Come on, say, your hands and sing out, church. Oh, oh, we sing, victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to him. Oh, 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 victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to him. Oh, oh, victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to him. Sing it out. Oh, victory belongs to Jesus. Victory belongs to him. Come on, let's give thanks and praise tonight. Amen. How great the chasm that lay between us. How high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is ready. Come on, sing it out. Jesus Christ, say, my living hope. Oh.
Could imagine so great a mercy, what heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross is spoken, I am forgiven. The King of Kings calls me his own. Beautiful Savior, I'm yours forever. Jesus Christ, my living hope.
Come on, sing it out. Oh, hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living. Come on, sing hallelujah. Hallelujah. Praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah. Death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Yeah. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on. Come on, then came the morning. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe. Out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on. Oh, Jesus, yours is the name. praise in this place. Yeah. Come on, why don't we lift our hands all over the building? Jesus, we give you praise. For you are worthy, worthy, Lord. Yeah. Oh, Jesus, we love your name. Oh, so good, so good, so good.
Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring the praise of your glory. And for you are raised to life again. For you have no rival, and you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. For yours is the kingdom, and yours is the glory, and yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is! What a powerful name it is! The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is! Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is! The name of Jesus. And you have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. For yours is the kingdom, and yours is the glory, and yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is! What a powerful name it is! The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is! Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is! The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is! The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is! The name of Jesus.
Come on, give him praise in this place. Come on.
All right. Are you good tonight? All right. Are you glad to be here without your kids tonight? Absolutely. Absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and have a seat? Let me talk to you just for a minute. Let me give you an illustration of what I think you're going to experience tonight. I want you to imagine that I'm an avid golf fan. All right. I don't play golf. But just imagine that I am, and that I'm really excited about sharing my love for golf with you. And I have you over to my house, and I tell you how great golf is, and I give you a couple books on golf, and I talk to you about, the rules of golf and how you do well in golf. And I say, you know what, let's do this. Let's go to the Nike store. I'm going to buy you all the gear, and you walk out looking like Tiger Woods, right? And you got all of this, this information now, and now you're looking the part, and I tell you all the rules, and I take you to the very best golf course in all of Kansas City, and I say, all right, let's do it. Like, this is your opportunity, and you stand on that first tee, and we simultaneously realize that I had forgotten to teach you how to swing a golf club. I think that how the church sometimes handles parenting is that way, right? We're excited that you're having a kid, we're excited that you have the stewardship of an eternal soul that God has plans and purposes for. And we're going to come over to your house for at least the first couple weeks and help you get acclimated. And then, we kind of give you a slap on the butt and say, all right, go get them. And it's cool for a little while, but then you have some of these desires that aren't met with reality. And you got all the gear, right? You got all the baby toys, and everyone's giving you all the clothes and the burpees, and not the burpees, I don't know. My kids are a little older now. Burpees is right? We have all the gear, but no one ever comes alongside and says, hey, this is how you do it. And I think that sometimes you come to church and in an attempt to be helpful, we give you biblical principles and biblical patterns, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you just need someone to be able to tell you, this is what you do when your kid does that. This is what you do when you feel this way. And so 7 or 8 years ago, my wife took me to a conference in Cincinnati. That I, to be honest with you, I wasn't super thrilled to go to the conference, but we happened into a session by this guy, Kirk Martin. And I've obviously listened to a lot of different people and parenting and family and all that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, that day, Kirk kind of cut through the noise for me. I was a young dad and had a lot of hopes and a lot of passion for at that point, my boy, Noah. But I had a lot of fear and a lot of insecurity that I didn't really know how to do this dad thing. And what Kirk did for me that day was two things. He gave me some hope that I could, because he gave me some tools to go in my tool belt. And so when we started talking about this micro conference and a parenting conference, our church is growing a lot in young families. Kirk came to mind, and we reached out and invited him to come to this. So my hope for you tonight is threefold actually. One, I'm proud of you for being here, because I know it's snowy. I know we just did 14 days of prayer. I know you could be a lot of different places, but it's good that you're here, and it's good that we're here together, okay? So you don't got your kids, so I want you to be a little extra friendly to someone who might be able to be a friend to you, because I hope that you know that you're going to need good friends if you're going to be a good parent, okay? And sometimes you need someone to say, oh, your kid does that too, right? Oh, you do that too? And so we want to give you the opportunity to do that tonight. We'll talk to you about the after party afterwards. Secondly, I want you to have some hope. No matter what season you're in, Ash and I, we have 12, 11, and 6 challenges at all of them, but we love do anything for our kids, right? But how do we point them to Jesus and not get in the way? So I hope you get some hope, and then I hope you leave with some tools that will help you that you can implement tomorrow morning. You can implement tonight at bedtime, unless you got a good babysitter, and they'll be in bed, okay? And so I hope that you'll lean in, that you'll take a lot of good notes, that you'll stick around with the after party. We're going to have a good time. I think you're going to learn a lot, but I want to pray for you, and then we'll invite Kirk up, okay? Are you good? Are you glad to be here? Okay, Ash and I are glad to be here. The rest of y'all, you don't know. Yeah, okay, all right. She's extra excited. Okay, all right, let's pray. Here we go. God, we love you. God, I thank you for my kids, for Noah, for Emma, for Isaiah. Lord, the incredible privilege that it is to be their daddy, the incredible privilege that it is to learn their personality and to know that you have given them gifts toward purpose in this life, that you want them to make a difference. But God, at the same time, there is some weight to stewardship and responsibility. And God, we want to be good parents, and not just good parents, but parents that point our kids to Jesus, and parents that don't pass our baggage down the line. And so I just pray tonight that you would give us humble hearts to listen, hopeful hearts, because we serve a God who is our banner of victory, and that you would teach us tonight together how to be good parents together in this church called Graceway. Let it be for your glory, our hope, and our joy. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'm going to welcome up Kirk Martin. Why don't you welcome him with me?
Thank you, Pastor. Do what? No, he's got a chair. Hey, welcome. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. Hey, so before, by the way, this is the reason that we are here, is because that's our strong-willed son, Casey. he made us who we are because he was so difficult as a kid. And so, but now he's awesome. He was a horrible kid, but he's an awesome young man. How many of your kids are like that? You know that. Once they become adults, they're going to be awesome. But right now, not so much. So before I kind of get into everything, what I always like to do before we start, if you don't mind, is find out, why'd you come out to a parenting conference? Why are you here tonight? Because you could be somewhere else, you could be doing something else. If you don't mind sharing, tell me what you're struggling with, because then I can customize this. Even knowing ages of your kids can help a little bit. So we'll spend like 5 minutes on this, if it's okay with you. If you don't want to make it about your family, you can just say, my neighbor's kids struggle with X, and then we'll talk about them because you have perfect family. So anything in particular that you're struggling with? Teenagers. Good. So you've got, well, hold on. So you've got a little bit over anxious there. So you've got teenagers, so my assumption is they're probably overly responsible, and you want them to be on screens a little bit more because it's really good to be on screens so they can be like YouTubers and stuff like that. Probably the opposite. So good. We'll get into teens. We'll get into internal motivation. We will get into teen attitude, dealing with that, right? And them taking responsibility for themselves and whatever else. So good. Who was sibling issues? Someone? Okay, so sibling issues I would normally do, but nobody else in here struggles with that. So if you were a better mother, your kids wouldn't fight. So there you go. So you know that's sarcasm. Look, here's the thing. The first family, Adam and Eve have 2 kids, Cain and Abel. One of the first 2 kids was a murderer. If you're doing better than a 50% murder rate among your children, historically speaking, you're a good mom, right? So it's the history of mankind is among siblings is to literally murder each other. Look what Joseph's brothers. And so all their moms are like, I want my kids to have empathy for each other. I don't. I want them not to kill each other. So the 2 things we'll get to with sibling issues tend to be, comes from 2 places. One is I'm bored, so I need my brain stimulated, and I'm going to poke my sister or look at her so she reacts. The other dynamic is if you have a strong-willed child. Strong-willed child tends to be in trouble all the time and often has a perfect brother or sister. There's your Cain and Abel, right? So we'll get into that. Good. What else? Hold on. Stop. Do you not teach your people like they're yelling out? I can do one at a time. Toddlers. We'll do some stuff on toddlers. Good.
Tone of voice, like the way she talks to me.
Okay. How old?
4.
Okay. From what I can tell, she got that from you. It's true, right? Okay. I don't understand why my child has attitude. Really? I do. So good. We'll get into that. Okay, let's keep rolling with that. What else? Okay, only child. Good. I can cover that. Twins. Good, so that's kind of like siblings, but really, really close in age, like minutes apart. So good. Okay. We'll get into, I'll do a few things with that. Yes, ma'am. Oh, kids who work the parents against each other. Do I have permission this weekend to be very blunt and honest? That's your issue, right? You're allowing it to, right? 'Cause I'm being a little bit harsh because the other day I got an email like, our 9-year-old is coming between us. I'm like, no, he's not. You're immature, right? And you two are the, I didn't say that to you. But I mean, you're the adults, right? So, and they will do that. Look, your kids know when you when you guys get in a little fight, and they'll use it against you because what happens is they know that there's a little bit of discord, so they'll act up a little bit. And sometimes one of the parents, we'll just say mom in this case, will allow the child to get away with something as a passive-aggressive way of getting back at her husband. Who does that? Don't raise your hands. Anyway, so good. So your other question is like, how do we get on the same page, right? That's kind of what's behind it. So my assumption is I'll talk to your husband is, look, here's the thing with your hubby. You and I are guys, which means we're naturally good at relationships. And so, like, we read all the parenting books, so it's just going to take patience for you while your wife kind of comes along with the whole parenting thing. You know that's sarcasm. It's the opposite. So here's the thing we'll get into. You don't have to parent the same way. One of the parents is going to be a little bit too tough, and the other one's going to be a little bit too soft. And you're going to balance each other out. And so we'll get into that a little bit, but really good question, so thank you. Couple more. What else? Yes? I'm sorry? Blended families, really tough. So I'll get into that a little bit later. If you don't mind, I'll save that for tomorrow because I've got a little bit more time tomorrow, and I can really do, and actually afterwards, see me if you're blended. Let me know specifics because there's a lot of stuff in there, and I'll try to do it. Yes?
I was going to add to that, just compromise between the blended family and just whenever they throw a fit when they don't have their way, how to deal with that.
Okay. Okay, good. So we'll get that. I'll do that a lot tomorrow, like when they throw a fit and don't get their way, and then the blended family. We'll do that tomorrow for sure when I have more time. Anything else, and then we'll get started. Yes, ma'am? Raising a teenage son. Okay, good. We'll get into some things throughout tonight, and then definitely tomorrow on kind of teenagers, communication, getting them to listen to you, all those things, and little kids too. Yes, ma'am, in yellow shirt or gold. Okay, so good. How old is the child? 13, kind of going along. Good. We will get to, tomorrow we'll get to, with your older kids, the two words will be mission and mentor, because when kids turn about 12, I want them having a larger mission in life, and I want them having a mentor, because other adults can say things to your kids that you can't, and they'll actually listen. How many of you, by the way, have kids who are awesome for other people and horrible for you? There you go. So good. So you guys need to kind of like parent each other's kids. It helps a lot. One more, and then I'm going to get started. Yes? Respect your parents. Good. So we will definitely do that. We're going to do a whole section tomorrow on defiance and disrespect and all of that. And I'll do some of that tonight as well. So I'm going to go ahead, just because we're down to an hour and 22 seconds, 28 seconds. That's causing me so much anxiety up here. So, but it's nice. I like it. This is the most organized church. We got at least 4,000 emails asking everything we needed. They are very, very organized. I told Casey beforehand, I hope you don't mind this, I was like, they might have a little bit of OCD stuff going on, but at least it's orderly, and I dig that. So, let me know age groups if you don't mind. Toddler age kids. Good. So a few things with toddlers before I kind of launch into everything. Remember this, toddlers are not supposed to be efficient or productive. Their job is to basically ruin your agenda as a parent, okay? And so, but watch, I really want you to watch this, because when you're a new parent, you're like on top of stuff. Like, I got to get stuff done. I'm going to raise a responsible, respectful child. And you read all the parenting books, and the toddler's going to come along. You know what their job is? Is to make messes, right? To make a mess of your life. And it's to throw you off. And what will happen is you'll end up spending your whole day, no, stop, get out of that. Don't touch. And I want you to be able to say yes to a lot of things. You have to, a good principle for all of us. Whenever you say no to something inappropriate, you have to say yes to something appropriate. So with your toddlers, I don't want everything to be no. I want them to get into things. I want them breaking stuff, because that's their job, is to explore, and they learn from that, right? Toddler age music. I don't know why I bring that up, but music is a great way to get little kids moving, because there's a rhythm in music. It's that old whistle while you work, and it will replace your annoying voice, because as modern day parents, we talk way too much. True? Our parents barely spoke to us. Isn't that true? We were gone all the time outside playing, and we all turned out okay. And modern day parents, we are with our kids all the time, and we suffocate them. So try to be a worse parent, and your kids will probably turn out better. So you know what I'm saying. Obstacle course. I say this for younger kids. I would build an obstacle course in the backyard, in the basement. Place where your kids have to climb under things, over things. The physical pressure for many of your kids is extremely helpful, and it's great as your kids are in middle school. If your kids don't like school, wake them up Monday morning and say, hey, guess where you're eating your breakfast? I hid your food out in the obstacle course, and they have to go forage for it. How many of you have kids who would love that, right? Because they get to be outside, away from you, and guess who it benefits? You, because your kids are outside. Some of your kids wake up and just say, throw a bunch of oatmeal out in the backyard, and they'll go out there on all fours, and they'll eat their oatmeal out there. Don't be afraid to do things a little differently. If you have a strong-willed child, you're going to get judged by other people. Don't be afraid to do things differently. Look, I'm just going to roll with, do you mind if I just roll with some things while it's top of mind? So, family dinner time. Everybody grew up with Leave It to Beaver. Oh, we're going to have family dinner time. But if every night is your husband's, Jacob, sit at the table. We're going to enjoy dinner together as a family. Apparently, you're not. So, if you have little kids, feed them early. All they eat is mac and cheese and chicken nuggets anyway, so feed them early, and then when the spouses get home, you can enjoy dinner together with just you and your spouse. That's an awesome thing, unless you've been married a while, and then you don't really know what to talk about with them, and it'll be awkward. But family dinner time is not the only time to bond with your kids. Feed them early, nice dinner with your spouse, and then after dinner, when they don't have to sit perfectly still like military father, because that was my dad, you roll on the floor with them and bond them, but don't be afraid to do it differently. Elementary school age. Okay, good. We'll do a fair amount in that age group. Middle school. Good luck. It is a very hard age. Couple things for middle schoolers. I believe it's a hibernation phase. It's a really hard emotional phase, and most middle school kids are not that motivated. They're not going to come home, Mom, Dad, give me some extra chores, some extra work. I want to show you how motivated I am. How many of you have a middle school age boy in particular? Good. If he's home right now, you know what he's doing? Nothing. Because that's what they do. He's not going to do chores or anything. He's going to have a hoodie sweatshirt on, probably the same hoodie sweatshirt he's worn for 18 straight days, and they're probably on a screen because that's what they do. And what happens is you're going to get freaked out because you're going to look at them and think, they're really smart, and they're capable of so much more. And you'll begin to lecture and say, if you would just apply yourself, you'd be capable of so much more, and you do the minimal work necessary just to get by. And have you noticed the more you lecture your kids, the more they resist you and shut down? And what I want to avoid in the middle school years is it tends to become very negative. You never do your schoolwork. You never do your chores. And we point out all the things that are wrong with them. And if you don't mind, I will just say this. Sometimes my language is a little bit unchurchy, and so I apologize to Pastor and to you, but I want to give voice sometimes to what's in your kids' hearts at times. And at that age, sometimes what comes out is, screw you. Screw you. It's never good enough for you. You're never happy with anything. It's negative, 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 and they'll end up shutting down and shutting you out. And I don't want them to shut you out because you have wisdom that they need. So I want you to focus in the middle school years on really finding ways to bond with your kids. Now, it's going to be hard because you don't like anything that they do. Video games and their music, but bond with their music and be interested in it because it's a great way to bond with your kids. Anyway, we'll get to middle school. We will get to internal motivation, and in high school age, okay, good. Usually by high school, people are like, almost done, who cares, right? It's too late. So high school, same thing, communication, internal motivation. How many of you have at least one child that you would term a little bit more strong-willed? Okay, good. That's kind of our specialty. So strong-willed kids. I want to give you some insight into the strong-willed kids especially. They tend to be very bright kids. Not always academically motivated, but they're very bright. They tend to use that bright little brain to argue with you because they have awesome critical thinking skills. They can pick out all of your inconsistencies. By the way, they're phenomenal to have in the church because they will point out all of the church traditions that have absolutely nothing to do with Scripture, right? How many of your kids do that? Don't get defensive, by the way, when your kids challenge your faith, because oftentimes, Casey, we were driving one time. I remember where it was probably 8 or 10 years ago, outside of Atlanta, and the preacher on the radio was saying, God needs your praise. God needs your praise. And my son's like, is God that needy? Like, why does he need my praise? But they picked that stuff out, and then we're able to have a good conversation of like, God doesn't really need our praise. We need to praise him, right? It's good for us. It's not so much that but anyway, they'll pick stuff out, but don't worry about that. So they're very, very good at that. They tend not to sleep at night. Sometimes it's anxiety issues because some of your kids with very busy brains are thinking about things all the time. Some of it is the pace of modern day life, because sometimes it's this, guys, get up, school, let's go. After school, extracurricular, gotta go, come on, let's do our homework, let's do, now we gotta get bath time, bedtime, go to sleep. And then the little kids are like, Mom, can we talk? You're like, no, I put Benadryl in your dinner, right, to knock you out, and I'm exhausted. But I would encourage you to sometime maybe before dinner or right after dinner, earlier in the evening, go in the living room, put a blanket down or some sleeping bags, turn down the lights, lie down on the floor for like 7 minutes and just say, what happened at school today? What's going on? I want to listen. And you're fully tuned in, not doing the dishes and everything else, because then your kids will dump. Because you know what happens at bedtime? It's the first time they've slowed down all day. And now they're like, Mom, in first period, this is what happened to me, and they want to dump it all out. So create opportunities. 7 minutes of just downtime, of you not being busy, is a long time. And you know what will happen? You'll fall asleep on the floor. So how many of you do that when you put your kids to bed and they're like, can you lie down with me? And you lay down and you wake up and they're staring at you, right? Especially on Friday night. So, sometimes they don't sleep well because they're up all night thinking of ways of getting out of doing stuff. Because when these kids wake up in the morning, they have an agenda. They know what they like and they know what they don't like. And what they don't like is anything that you want them to do. So there are power struggles over everything. And you will spend their childhood saying this, if you would just do what I asked you to do, you would be done in 7 minutes. But you'd rather argue with me for 7 hours or days or weeks or years and lose everything you own. How many of you have those kids, right? How many of you have kids for whom consequences mean nothing? They literally don't care. And you can tell them, I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap. And they'll say, oh, could we use Irish Spring? And they don't care. So this weekend, we will get beyond consequences, because it's the first thing that we all want to. What consequence is going to work? Well, for your strong-willed kids, none. They don't care. And there's a reason that we go to consequences, because we assume that behavior is rational. Behavior is not rational. If it was rational, our jails wouldn't be filled and you wouldn't have married the person that you married, because you made an irrational choice. Because half of you thought you could fix your spouse. How'd that work out for you? Not well, right? And so most of our behavior is emotional and irrational. And your kids don't think through. The strong-willed kids are very, very emotional, often impulsive. So they're not putting things together right away. So we're going to go well beyond, we'll do some consequences, but I'm going to go well beyond that so it actually works. So here's a couple other things about strong-willed kids. This is going to be a tough one. They often have to reject what you want first before they can own it themselves. Does that make sense? They will often reject your faith first. Why? They don't want to believe because mommy and daddy are making me. They want to come to it on their own, and it's going to freak you out, but it's a really healthy process, because once they own something, they have it for life. Does that make sense? It's a really cool thing, so we'll get into why that is. Here's the hardest part for me. I believe this to be true. Your strong-willed child will never, ever, ever, ever do things the way you want them done. They're not going to do it your way. And I don't care if you're 6'5", 250, I'm putting $500 on the 6-year-old, because he will own you. You can go with, I was raised by a career military father, my way or the highway, right? Yell and scream, fear and intimidation. It doesn't work with these kids, and they're not going to do it your way. Why? Because your way is boring, stupid. And you've heard that, right? It comes across, right? It's a good thing, but it's going to irritate you. Just so you know, this is not permissive parenting, right? Let your kids do whatever they want, and they'll turn out fine. They won't. But it also doesn't work for these kids just to use that approach. They're not going to do it your way. We're going to find out why that is, that it's a very, very good thing that they're like that. So, does this make sense so far? We'll get into the practical stuff, but I want to identify this. So very quickly, here's where experience comes from. The big tall kid, Casey up here, he was a strong-willed child that came out of the womb with boxing gloves on, loved to argue. He was so awful as a child that he got kicked out of Montessori school. If you can't make it a Montessori, you have issues because they love everyone. So, Pastor met us at a homeschooling convention because we didn't homeschool for religious reasons. He just couldn't fit in any school, and he kept getting kicked out, so we kind of had to for a while. And then we sent him into the schools because that's a nice mission field, and our son was never a follower. He's a leader, right? A little bit too much. We called him the Kaiser when he was growing up because I taught him to walk with a purpose, and he took it too literally, and so it's an awesome trait. But I will tell you, the traits that irritated us most about him when he was a kid are the very traits we admire now. That pig-headed obstinance will become persistence one day. You just got to live to see that, right? But we'll get there. So what we did was, I didn't want to do like one-on-one therapy with kids. I wanted to open up our home. So the vision was, we'll open up our home. We had a little townhouse outside of D.C., and we'll have, I told my wife, I was like, I've got this awesome idea. Why don't we take like 8, 10, 15 kids, just like Casey, and open up our home? Maybe a bunch of them have different special needs. We'll open up our home, have them over at our house, and we'll teach them how to calm their emotions and control their impulses. And she was like, that's not a good idea. We can barely get away with handling Casey. But we did it anyway, because I wanted kids in our home so that we could control the environment. So I would change plans on them at the last minute. Why? Your kids can't deal with changes in plans. And how many of your kids are like that? Freaks them out. So we could teach them in the moment how to deal with frustration and disappointment, right? So we were just in Nashville, and we had to teach them how to deal with the disappointment of facing the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. So don't get cocky. 49ers, pretty tough defense. But Patrick Mahomes is really fast. So, do what? They do need to keep him off the field. Thank you. Anyway, I'm playing to the local crowd. When I was in Nashville, I was like, who cares about Kansas City? They haven't won in 50 years. So whatever. I'm just sucking up to you. Own it. Own it. You've been horrible for a long time, which is why it feels so good. You got lucky. Anyway, it's good. No, you got Patrick Mahomes. You got a great coach who's never won a Super Bowl. So, look, there's anger. I thought this was a Christian crowd. Apparently not. So, apparently we know where football ranks here. So, look, I was a Chiefs fan before you because I'm old. I was a fan of Len Dawson, and most of you don't know who he is. True? I was a Len Dawson fan. You're Browns. If you want to talk about a loser franchise, Pastor Tim. Anyway. Oh, but they have Baker Mayfield. He's going to save the franchise. Okay. Sorry. I drank a little bit before I came in. I'm kidding. So, I didn't. I don't even drink. You saw the promo video. I have a Kansas City Chiefs shirt. So we're all good, and I want the Chiefs. And I'm not going to San Francisco because you know what they're like out there. So, I didn't mean that. Okay, let's stay focused. So over the course of a decade, we had about 1,500 of those kids in our home. And so I hope what you find throughout the weekend is there's a lot of science and research in this. I'm going to use we'll use some biblical principles, and then we'll put some meat on it, make it very, very practical. So tonight, here's what we're going to focus on: us. We're going to focus on my two main goals for this weekend. One, I want to give you tools to teach your kids so that they can control themselves. See, the best discipline is not you sending your kids to a room, it's your children having self-discipline, right? So we'll get to that tomorrow. Tonight, we're going to do the harder thing, which is changing us and breaking generational patterns. My dad was career military. He was known in our family as the Colonel. So it was a lot of fun growing up. And so when I grew up, it was a lot of fear and intimidation around our house. So guess what happens? I had 3 brothers. So the 4 of us grow up. We get married, start having kids. Guess what we did? Same thing that my dad did. So every night we come home from work, you know what? Why are the Legos all over the floor? Why don't you ever pick anything up? And my family had to walk on eggshells around me because they didn't know how I was going to react when things went wrong. I put my wife in a really horrible position because I would come home and start getting on Casey about things because that's what I thought discipline was, yelling at your kids, because that's what my dad did to us. And I put my wife in the position of this. Do I stand up for my child and protect him? But if I do that, now I'm undermining my husband's authority. And that's a horrible place for a wife to be in. So I spent the first 9.5 years trying to change Casey. And I go for walks and talk to God and be like, why'd you give us this child? Why can't you just change Casey? And I started hearing these 3 still little voice, 3 little questions in my brain. Number 1, what if your son is made like this on purpose? Second question, what if by trying to change your son, you're frustrating my purposes for your son? That'll hit you. So now you're realizing you're messing with a plan. Third question, what if instead of trying to change your son, you're the one who needs to change? And I blocked that voice out because I thought that was from the devil. Because I'm a man. Because I'm like many of the men in here, I'm a guy, right? I don't have issues because a lot of guys do denial, right? I'll get the ones like, I don't have anger issues, clearly, right? And we do, we get that from our parents, right? It comes down. And so I changed, and I found that the more that I changed, the more my son changed. And so I believe the greatest gift that I've given my son is breaking that generational pattern that I got from my dad, who got it from his dad and his dad. Everybody in here has patterns. Some of the wives in here, some of the moms, you're really, really sweet. But you had that mother who was like the martyr mother, who did everything for everybody else and nothing for herself, right? And you'll hear yourself saying things like, after all I do for you. You know whose issue that is? Yours. Because nobody's demanding that you do that. And your kids are never going to wake up and say, Mom, listen, how to talk with my brother, we've decided you do too much for us, right? They're not going to do that. If people are taking advantage of you, it might be something inside of you, right? Those of you who married a controlling man, it's not all the controlling man. There's something inside of you that drew that person to you, right? It's no blame and no guilt in any of this. It's simple realization of we all have generational patterns. And parenting, I think, is partly, marriage and parenting are God's way of either causing us to grow apart or grow up. Right? Because that's what happens. And if you have a strong-willed child, it just means that God entrusted you with a very tough kid who's going to rule the world one day. So, and you're going to have friends around you who both have little compliant kids, and they're going to judge you. But it's like God knew that they weren't very mature people, so he gave them easy ones to handle. So, I'm kidding, but it just works out that way. So, first principle we always talk about. There's one person in life that you can control, and that is whom? Ourselves. How many of us struggle with that? How many of us ever tell our kids, you need to calm down and get control of yourself? Anybody ever do that? Anybody do that tonight before the conference, right? I'm going to the parent calm conference. You need to settle down. And her kids are like, Mom, Dad, I hope this is a 4-week conference because we need some help with that. Now, I believe this to be true. The quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. Quickest way, by the way, the quickest way to change your spouse's behavior, and we'll do this tomorrow in the little spouses section, marriage section, is to control your own behavior. It's a fascinating, fascinating thing. You'll see by the end of this it makes sense. Quickest way to change your child's behavior is to first control your own. Look, if you come up to a strong-willed child like this, what are you going to get? Power struggle, right? All this says is, oh, apparently you want to fight, bring it, right? So if I come up to... Is this going to work with a camera, or is it going to really mess you up? Like, if I come up to this gentleman like this, what are we going to have? We're going to have a confrontation. He's a big, strong-looking dude. I'm not an idiot, okay? So if I have to have words with him, now what are we having? A conversation, not a confrontation. So 2 things to begin with I'd work on and watch, especially with strong-willed child. We're going to talk about body posture and tone of voice. And these things are critical. So this will sound funny and dumb, but it works. So we had all these kids in our home, and I started to discipline kids. Look, here's normal discipline. I come home from work frustrated, and I start walking around like this because there's stuff all over the place, and I need you to get ready, and I need you to do these things. When I'm in this kind of mode, I just want to bark out orders, right? And start yelling at kids. So I began to discipline all the kids who came in our home same way. I'd sit and I'd discipline like this. And I did it for 2 reasons. 1, it freaks kids out. They have no idea what to do with you when you're sitting down. But the real reason was this. Watch what I'm communicating. I'm in complete control of myself. My yes is my yes. My no is my no. I'm not going to repeat things 14 times. I'm not going to beg you. I'm not going to scream and yell. I'm in control of myself. So let me give you a practical example, and you're going to think it's funny or stupid, but try it. The next time your kids are squabbling with you, next time you're having a little sibling fight going on in the living room, walk into the living room and lie down in the middle of the living room floor. Try it sometime. Because those 2 kids who are squabbling with each other, they're going to stop. You know why? Because they're going to look over at you like, what's my mother doing laying down in the middle of the floor? And you take back control of that situation, not by controlling their behavior, but by controlling yours. Now let's do this in context of a sibling example. I'm just going to pick on you 2 because you sat up front. So, what's your name if you don't mind? Christian? Good name. I'm not going to ask you, it's okay. I just want to, because I'm going to yell at him because he's a man. So, there's my son and my daughter. Okay, typical situation. If you have a handout, if you don't mind, if you got one of our Celebrate Calm handouts, open it up. 2nd page, you'll see a chart with 3 columns. So typically what happens in this situation is, so in the 3rd column of that chart, if you see that chart with 3 columns, a lot of your strong-willed kids have brains, they don't get enough dopamine or blood flow, so the brain is physiologically understimulated. So they're always looking for stimulation. By the way, it's why they argue with you. It's why they pick on their siblings. It's why they procrastinate. It's why they fidget all the time. It's why they do all those things in that 3rd column are related to a brain that needs to be stimulated. So my son Christian is bored this afternoon, but he needs his brain stimulated, so he decides to poke his sister, or better, almost poke her without actually touching her, because that's more irritating, or he looks at her. And she says, Mom, Dad, Christian, my brother's irritating me. So what do we usually do? Mom usually comes into the room. You know what, Christian? Guys, after all I do for you, I buy you all these toys, all these video games. You can't even play well together for 20 minutes. You know what? If you can't play well, you go to your room, you go to your room, right? And inadvertently, what I just did with the kids, and watch, let me finish it and I'll come back. Now, what happens? Mom's yelling, Dad gets upset. Why does Dad get upset? Because his wife is upset. And we have no clue what to do with you when you're upset. True? And it freaks men out. So you know what we're really saying? Christian, I don't care if you pick on your sister. Do not make my wife upset. Because I don't know what to do with that. And so watch what happened. One child, by looking at his sister, got 3 people in the home all wound up. Whose issue is that? Not his, it's yours, and it's hers. True? No blame, no guilt, but you got to own your stuff, okay? I want to write a book one day called Own Your You-Know-What Stuff, right? I want a politician at some point. I will vote for the first politician who admits the reason I didn't get elected is because I'm untrustworthy and unlikable. And I'll be like, you got it now, I'll vote for you, okay? So, one kid does that, and inadvertently, when I come down and just start yelling at Christian, you know what inadvertently I teach him? If you want your brain stimulated, just do something negative, because then you get all of my intensity. By the way, it's not attention. Your kids don't want your attention. They want your intensity, because the brain is drawn to intensity, and what they learn very quickly is The quickest way for someone to get intense in my home is for me to do something wrong. Right? By the way, I could do a little aside. For the men out there, please don't get freaked out. Every dad, it's like comes with the dad parenting thing. It's this one. Look at me, look at me, look at me when I'm talking to you. Every man thinks if his child isn't looking at him, it's disrespect. It's right, true? Okay, so we do this, oh, look at me, look at me. Part of the reason they're not looking is, usually a lot of kids that we work with, they think best when they're not looking an adult in the eyes. And I know you can say, oh, that's an excuse. It's not. They're sensory kids, and they think best when they have their eyes closed, when they're looking away. That's why in school sometimes, and I'll do this tomorrow, they actually do better when they're looking out the window, when they're looking down. They process stuff better. And the other reason they don't want to look you in the eyes is because the only time you ever look them in the eyes is when they're in trouble. So it's a fear thing. Because dad ever comes in, Christian, look at me, just made a good choice. I'm proud of you. Like nobody does that. But I want you to start doing that because your kids will seek this positive intensity from you when you give it to them. So I just taught him something negative, and I just taught my daughter kind of a victim, right? Because like this whole issue was your brother's, but it's not, because she has the choice of whether she reacts to it or not, right? So let's rewind the situation. Instead, they're squabbling. Mom comes into the living room, lies down in the middle of the floor. For the moms in here, sometimes it's kind of nice because you haven't been able to sit down since you had kids, right? So take advantage of it. By the way, sorry for the asides, but I just try to roll with what pops in my mind sometimes. For the moms out there who do too much for your kids, you've got to break that pattern. So here's a good one. One night this weekend or next week, I want you to sit on the sofa, right? Because usually it's that evening time, right? Especially during the week, you're doing everything for your kids. Sit, start reading something you want to read. Not a parenting book, not something for your kids. Read something you want to read. And when your kids come in the room, Mom, I'm hungry. I want to eat. You can say, hey, you've got 2 legs and 2 feet. You can go to the kitchen, get yourself a snack. And while you're there, I would like a snack and a glass of iced tea. And what you will have just demonstrated is that your time's important and that you were worthy of your kids waiting on you sometimes. Because the reason, if I can go a little harsh, it's this. For some of us in here, the reason your kids don't respect you is because you don't respect yourself. The reason your kids don't respect your time is because you don't respect your own time, because you do everything for everybody else and nothing for yourself. And it sounds like it's very virtuous, and it's not, because Jesus didn't even do that. Hey, Jesus, my brother's dying. Lazarus is dying. Yeah, I think I'll hang out here for a few days. Every mom in here would have been like, oh, is he sick? Let me make him some soup. I'll make him organic soup. And then I'll take it to him, and I'll wait on him, and I'll serve him. And give. Jesus did not do that. He retreated off into the mountains so that he could reconnect and connect with his Father so that then he could give out. Does that make sense? Jesus did not run around like a madman like modern day parents do trying to satisfy everybody. True? I always make this joke. I hope it's okay. But like if Jesus were like a modern day parent, especially a mom, he would have been running around frazzled, and then he'd be up on the cross like, see what you did to me, right? He would have been doing like a big guilt trip. But he didn't do that. So moms, I want you to take some time for yourselves and demonstrate self-respect. You can't demand respect from another human being. You have to demonstrate self-respect. Let me do it in 2 ways here. 2 ways of saying this. I'm going to do the harsh one first. If you don't care enough about yourself to take care of yourself, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, why would anybody else care about you? You run around without regard to your own emotional, physical, emotional health, and you're demonstrating that you're not worthy of someone treating you well because you don't treat yourself well. Some things in here, I did a thing for social workers this afternoon in Johnson County. And social workers, if there are any in here, are very, very, very giving people, but they tend to not take care of themselves. And so I asked them, I said, you'll do anything for your client. And if anyone treated your client the way you treat yourself, you'd be furious at them. Some of it's a worthiness issue. You're going to have to deal with that on a deep level of knowing I'm worthy. This is not pride, okay? I'm worthy of having people serve me sometimes. Because some of the moms in here, you have a hard time asking for help. Oh, I've got it. And I want you to let people serve you sometimes because they'll begin to respect you because you demonstrate self-respect. Here's the nice way of saying it. The greatest gift I give my family is not what I do for them, is what I do for myself. As you can probably tell, I'm kind of a sarcastic jerk by nature. My nature is I'm kind of a jerk. It is. And so I spend a lot of time on self-care. I work out almost every single day because I have to sweat off my jerkiness, right? And when I go for my morning walks, when I walk alone, because I'm not good at praying, sitting, kneeling and praying, I fall asleep. And so I go for walks and I talk to God. And the gift to my family is when I walk through the door of my home, now my wife and kids don't have to manage my emotions for me because I already did it. And so when I walk in through that door, I don't need you to manage my anxiety because I took care of that in the gym. Now, when you're having a bad day, I can deal with it. And when you're in a bad mood, I don't have to fix that mood because I can deal with it and say, honey, for the men out here, that's all you have to do. Totally get why you're frustrated. And then zip, don't say another word. Oh, honey, there's no need to be upset. You're just overreacting. Thank you, honey. Where are you sleeping tonight, right? So, take that self-care thing very seriously. Christians hear it as being selfish, but it's not. If you study the life of Jesus, you'll see that he took really good care of himself because he knew his mission on earth was to give out to other people, but you can't do it if you're exhausted in every way. So, now I walk in the living room and I lie down on the floor and they stop and look over like, what are you doing? Now I have a chance to teach. Discipline literally means to teach. It's from the word disciple. How do you disciple someone? By talking to them all the time? Best way is by living out your life in front of them. Discipline is not punishment. It's not consequences. It's teaching. So now watch, I've got an opportunity to teach. Because they're going to be like, what are you doing? Just observing. Look, I know what's about to happen here. So Christian, here's what's going on. You've got this really cool brain, right? It's like really, really, really busy. How many of you have kids with busy brains? They're thinking all the time, right? And so when things feel like that's out of your control, you try to control other people at times, but you've got this busy brain that needs to be stimulated. So when you get bored, you pick on your sister. Couple issues with that. One is when you pick on your sister, you just lose all your stuff. And two, it makes you weak because you need her to react. Because if she doesn't react, you've got to up your game, and then you're going to lose everything you own. So here are two other things I know about you. You love money. How many of you have kids who love money? And I don't mean in a bad way. They're just really drawn to it. Good. You know what I mean. It's a good thing. They're naturally gravitate toward it. And I will tell you, most of those kids, the other trait that I know is they have big hearts. Never towards you, but toward other people. True? So Christian, you really like money and you like helping other people. So you've got an option here. And watch the tone of voice. I'm talking to them. Instead of, you know what? Why can't you guys ever get along? Or doing the mommy thing. You know, you guys are going to be best friends one day. La, 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 la. No, they're not. Are you best friends with your siblings? No. That's why family visits are short. So anyway, you know what I mean? So look, now I have a chance to teach. Say, look, I'm giving you a couple options. If you want to spend your whole childhood just irritating your sister, you're going to be miserable. But look, I bet we could come up with 3 or 4 different ways for you to earn some money in the neighborhood, right? Because some of you have kids. Any of you have kids, this is a weird one, that would love to like shovel mulch or do heavy work like that. It's weird, but use that to your advantage. Your kids can get jobs in the neighborhood, raking leaves, walking dogs. They can make a lot of money from that. So if you want to start making some money, I will match whatever you give to St. Jude's to help those kids with cancer. And I'm showing him a different way to stimulate his brain that's positive. Does that make sense? But it's using his strengths. Now with my daughter, I can say, honey, listen, I get it. Your brother's irritating. Welcome to life. He's been irritating since he was in my womb, right? But if all you're ever going to do in life, look, when we do this stuff with our kids, we make them a victim. Honey, I'm sorry. Sorry, he's your brother. Listen, your childhood's going to be miserable until he goes off to college or jail. Sorry, right? And I'm not doing that. So, honey, here's the deal. People are irritating in life. If all you're ever going to do in life is react to irritating people or situations, you're going to be miserable in life, and I can't help you with that. But if you want to learn how to respond to your brother instead of react to him, I can show you 3 different ways to do that. But you have a choice in the matter. Right? Does that make sense? And I'm teaching her instead of just getting all frustrated. So try it sometime, the body posture. Just watch. It's really, really cool. Let me do this one, and then I'll come to tone of voice. For the men in here, I like to use analogies with men, just so you kind of get the concept. Men in every sphere of life respect other men who stay calm and cool under pressure. Like in the middle of a war, you don't want your platoon captain saying, "Oh my gosh, they're shooting at us." Nobody's following that guy. March Madness is coming up, right? And at the end of a game, close game, they're going to interview the winning team. "Man, how'd you guys pull out that game?" They never said, "Man, we just freaked out at the end." They always say the same exact words. "We just stayed calm and played our game." Super Bowl's coming up, right? A good quarterback. Okay, let's say San Francisco gets off to a lead. Okay, if Patrick Mahomes comes in the huddle, "You know what? We're down by 2 touchdowns. You don't know what route to run. You keep fumbling the ball." Nobody's following that quarterback. But he's going to come in the huddle. Watch the body posture. Takes a knee. "Guys, we're down by 2 touchdowns. We've got them right where we want them." Just what we did with the Titans. Just what we did, right? What we did to everybody. We're going to march down the field. We're going to execute our plays. We're going to score, get the ball back, and score again. Probably in like 1 minute and 8 seconds. So, right? And his team follows him. Look, when you guys were down, who was it you're down 3 touchdowns to? Texans. You didn't see Patrick Mahomes over there like, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?" And his team comes into the huddle and follows him because, you can't, he's unflappable. So for the men in here, especially if you have little kids, sometimes instead of coming home all frustrated from work and flailing about, come in, take a knee. Call your kids, because little kids are drawn to people who sit. It's really cool. On church on Sunday, go out there and just sit in the middle. Go to a mall, sit in the middle of the floor. You will have like 15 kids sitting around you. Because when you sit, it says, "I've got time for you." And I'm not gonna, so you come in and take a knee, your kids come, and then you say, "Guys, here's the deal. Christian, here's the deal. Son, daughter, we've got a busy night tonight. You and I, we're going to get started on dinner. Mom and daughter, take care of that. We'll meet back here at 5:54. Then we're taking off." See, they'll follow you when you're in control of yourself. But if I just come in, "You know what? We're always late. You have stuff all over. You never do this." Your kids don't want to follow you because all they know is you're going to flip people off in traffic, right? How many of you, Sunday morning's the worst morning of the whole week? How many of you yell at your kids the entire way to church, right? And then you get there, "You will be on your best behavior. We are going in to worship Jesus," right? And you're like, "But you just flip people off in the parking lot because we're running late." For whatever reason, Sunday morning's awful. We taught in a mosque, Muslim, in 1 week last year, we did a mosque, a synagogue, and a Christian church. And what I found out, here's what all 3 faiths have in common. Parents yell at their kids on the morning of their worship. So the Jewish people do it on Friday, the Muslims on Saturday, and the Christians on Sunday. It's awesome. So do that. Watch the posture. Let's do tone of voice, and this one's critical. Tone of voice, especially for your emotional kids, strong-willed children, even matter-of-fact tone. It's really more important than you can possibly imagine. So here's what we've kind of fallen into. A lot of modern-day parents, nothing wrong with this, but here's what they do. "Sweetie, baby, mommy needs your help." And I don't like that sweetie baby thing, okay? Nothing wrong with it, but here's what your kids hear. "Sweetie, baby, you scare the crap out of me because every time I tell you to do something, you have a big tantrum. So I think if I use a sing-songy mommy voice and I throw in scripture because maybe Jesus will help me with you," right? All they hear, and I'm not being funny with this, they hear weakness and they hear it as condescending. And I really am not a big fan of referring to myself as mommy or daddy with a strong-willed child. They hear it as weakness. I'd rather you talk to your 3-year-old, your 13-year-old, your 23-year-old like they're an adult. I know it'll sound to a lot of the moms in here, it will sound very cold, but it's not. It says, I'm in control. This really sweet, by the way, that really, really overly sweet sounds very patronizing. And when your kids are really upset and we do, oh, honey, it's okay. You know what it feels like? What they want to say? It feels like you're not taking me seriously. Does that make sense? Honey, it's okay. It's like the husband. Honey, it's okay. There's no need to be upset. He's trying to mollify you, and you're not taking it seriously. So if my 7-year-old is jumping on the sofa, I'm not coming in the room, hey, buddy, you know what? There's springs in the sofa. We don't jump on the sofa. By the way, you don't have to do the we thing unless you're jumping on the sofa, okay? I get it. Many of us grew up with very authoritarian parents like mine, and we didn't want to be authoritarian, but we've gone too far the other way, and we're a little bit too egalitarian. So right in the middle, so when I come into the room, it may sound like this. Hey, jumping on the sofa, not happening in my home. But I love your energy. If you want to come help me stir the soup, walk the dog, I'm all over that. So break this down. When I come in the room, I'm in control of myself. Not do I, how many times do I have to tell you? They don't care. Don't talk about your childhood. When I was a kid, all it says is you're old, right? So when I come in the room and I say, hey, jumping on the sofa, not happening in my home. Here's why I like it. It's a statement of fact, but it's not personal. Why do you always jump on it? Why can't you? There's nothing personal. I'm letting you know how I roll in my home. Here's how I roll. Jumping on a sofa, not happening. I like it because it's short and sweet. We get in trouble when we talk way too much. The more words you use, the less valuable they become. And it just becomes Charlie Brown's teacher. And that's all they end up hearing. Short and sweet says I'm in control of myself and I've got authority, right? Jumping on a sofa, not happening in my home. I don't know, whatever words you want to use. I had 1,500 kids in my home, so I got very short. Hey, not happening. I said other things too that I can't say here, but it was before I was kind of saved in parenting. So, no, not really. You know what my phrase was? Hey, cut the crap. And for some reason, that really worked. I don't know why, but it really worked. I'm not advocating that one. Now, here's the other part. So when you go no, and we're going to do a whole thing on discipline tomorrow. When I say no, there's no energy in it. I'm not going to give energy. I'll give you a quick one. You're going to be my stand-in, my teenage daughter. I'm mom, teenage daughter, okay? Teenage daughter's mouthing off, she's rolling her eyes, right? All those things. Rather than react to it, I'm going I like a very kind of low key. So honey, here's the deal. You may continue talk to me like that. You may continue to roll your eyes with me. I don't need you to respect me because I've got something called self-respect. So if you're going to talk to me like that, but then you're going to expect me, especially in the winter, every night to get out of my warm house, go out to the car and take you to an extracurricular that costs way too much and you're not even good at, not happening anymore. I'm kidding. Leave that. That's just sarcasm. You can think it. Don't say it, okay? You will crush your child. I thought you said I had a good singing voice. Not really. God loves your voice, but I don't. So anyway, but you know what? Leave that part out, but you got to use humor. It's Friday night, people are tired. So that's self-respect. But I'm not making it be, how dare you talk to me? I can't believe that you would talk. We create all this drama. I don't need drama, I'm just letting you know. Let me follow this one through, and I'll probably do it again tomorrow. I'm out of order here. But look, I don't need you to respect me. I have self-respect. The reason I want you to respect me, it's not for me. I don't need, some of this is going to bother you. I don't need you to respect me. Right? I'm a grown adult. Does God need you to respect him? Is he up there like, I can't believe after all I've done for them, they don't respect me? True? Sometimes you know what's really helpful for parenting is to imagine how God deals with it as a parent. Because then you realize like, oh, I'm kind of petty, he's not. Right? By the way, can I be honest? Stop taking everything personally. I wish I could swear sometimes. Sometimes I do wish I could swear because I do in my personal prayer time. I do because it adds some intensity to it. I hope you're not offended by that, but I swear some because it adds some intensity to it, and I'm an intense person, and it adds something. You're the freaking grown-up. You're the grown-up. I know, but my 9-year-old's really tough. I know he is, but you're 35. There's 2 of you. You have like 80 years of experience and you're being owned by a 5-year-old, right? True? Stop taking it so personally. What if God did that? All he'd be doing is like, can't believe that they did that. Don't you love me? Right? He doesn't do guilt trips like we do. I gave my son and that's how you treat me, right? Because he knows that we're weak and we're clay, right? And your kids are broken. We're all broken. That's why I want you to have mercy on each other in your marriage, right? You're all broken. We're all broken people. We'll get into that with the marriage. It's really good. So, look, the reason, I don't need you to respect me. I'm a grown adult. You're a terrible parent. Oh, my life is going to crumble. Oh, she called me. I didn't look to my son for validation. True? I'm the adult. I told my son when he was 13, I was like, here's my expectation during your teen years. You're not going to like my voice. You're not going to like anything I tell you. I don't need you to like it, and I don't need you to like me. I just simply expect you to do what I told you to do. You can have a bad attitude. If you're outside raking the leaves and you're miserable, I'll pop some popcorn and pull up a lawn chair and watch you be miserable. I don't need you to have a good attitude. I just expect you to do what I want. I don't always have a good attitude either, okay? Sometimes God asks us to do stuff. I don't always like, yes, sir, I'm really pleased. No, I'm grumbling. It's stupid. Why'd you ask me to do that? Duh, I don't want to do it, but I do it, right? So, look, there's a lot of stuff in there about stop controlling other people's moods. Well, kids, you need to be grateful. How many wives in here like it when your husband comes home and you had a bad day and he says, oh, honey, there's no need to be upset. You just need to be grateful. Really? I don't want to control my mood. Sometimes I want to be in a bad mood. True? Just give me some space, right, to work through my mood without you standing over me, lecturing and throwing scripture at me. In all things, give thanks. Oh, you know what I'm thankful for? That you're leaving right now because you're irritating me, right? Do you know what I mean? Don't use scripture as a bludgeon for your kids because they'll end up hating it, right? Because we use scripture sometimes for our own purposes. And yes, for my own, to use as a bludgeon against people, right? Anyway, we'll get to that. So, I hope you'll have me back tomorrow. So, look, so the reason I want you to respect me, it's not for me, it's for you. Because when I know when kids respect their parents, things go better with them. And I know that you're 13, you're going to want freedom to do birthday parties and sleepovers to get your driver's license. But honey, every time you talk back and you roll your eyes at me, all it tells me is you're not mature enough to handle that freedom. And that makes me sad for you. So I'm not mad at you. I can take it. It's not going to affect my life. Your attitude affects your life, not mine. Does that make sense? Because I'm giving ownership to the child. Every time I come in and try to control them and do all this stuff, I'm actually taking ownership for their choices. I want you to own that. It's not going to ruin my day. So, where was I in this whole thing? I'm like 4 things apart from, to thank you. It's pretty good. So tone of voice, really good. I like the even matter-of-fact tone of voice. And then when we're not doing sweetie, watch, here's what happens. When we're really sweet and then they don't do it, like in a half second, how many of us do this thing? You know what? You get a bet, get your little butt up in bed right now. How many of you do that? You go from like really sweet, and then in a half second, you're like, you know what? I tried to be sweet. Now you're going to get devil mom, right? And now you go for it. But the problem with yelling it is this. 2 things, and for the dads out here, 2 things. 1, you can't intimidate a strong-willed child. By nature, they're fight or flight kids. And you come up to them and say, you know what, my way or the highway, and they're going to be like, bring it. Bring it. Oh, you want to spank me? Fine, I'll go outside. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to break a branch off a tree, and I'm going to whittle on it for like an hour and a half. I'll make it nice and sharp. I will come in. They will pull their own pants down, bend over, hand Dad a little switch, and say, have at it, Dad. And right in the middle of it, they'll say, Dad, you know what? Can't even feel it when you spank me. Might want to have Mom do it. They'll taunt you. How many of you have discovered that? Look, I'm not going to do a thing on spank because everybody gets all controversial about it. All I know for the strong-willed child is sometimes when you go really hardcore like that, it will drive the defiance so deep into them that every time you hit them, they will say, F you, F you, F you. So we're going to go a different way to handle that, but I just watch that whole thing. So I don't like the sweetie baby. I don't like the screaming and yelling. Right in between that is me in control of myself. It's me as the leader, and kids will follow you if you lead. Does that make sense? So let's do a couple applications. It's one of my favorite ones. So one of the big triggers in our homes is, how many of you, this is a big trigger for the men in here, when you hear your child yelling at your wife, right? Big trigger. So in this example, Christian, you're going to be my son, and you're going to be the mom, okay? I like picking on you. You have such a sweet face. I know at home you're probably not, but here, really sweet face. So I walk into the room, and I hear my son yelling at my mother, and I come in, and I'm probably going to do this. And by the way, I want to make this clear. There's nothing wrong with most of what we're doing. For the men in here, you're justified in yelling at your kids sometimes. You're justified. But it doesn't mean that it's right or that it works well. Does that make sense? You're justified in being frustrated. But I want what works. So I'd likely come in and say, Christian, how many times do I have to tell you, you don't yell at your mother? And then that was my opportunity when Casey was little, launch into, you leave your stuff up all the time, never do the chores. And I said, you know what, go to your room for the rest of the week, no video games, no food. Because I'm a man, I give consequences I can't keep. How many of you do that one, right? How many of the men do this one? No video games the rest of the week while I'm away on a business trip. Now your mom has to deal with it. So, now, I walk away thinking, I just stood up for my wife. And you know what she's thinking? No, you didn't. You just ruined the whole night. Because now I've got to spend 2 hours up in his room calming down our son who's crying, explaining that your father doesn't hate you. He just has some unresolved issues from childhood, right? And now I get resentful. Why? Because I wouldn't have to yell at your son if you weren't so soft and let him get away with everything. Does that happen in the home? That's pretty common, right? So, and she's like, yeah, and you're a hard, right? Because that's the way it works in most homes. So that ends in all kinds of frustration. So let's look at a different way to handle this. So a couple little preambles before we do the example. One, before you discipline in this situation, you have to de-escalate. You've got to de-escalate the situation, because what happens is we hear something going on and we're right on it, like right away. You know what? Stop it. You better, right? And we're on it, and that child's already really emotional. I'm emotional. Never a good mix, right? And so what usually happened with Casey when he was little, I come in, you know what, Casey? You know what? One more word, young man. One more. And you know what? That was a cue for him to say, word, right? Because he was a very challenging kid, and he knew that would make me furious. So if you do the word, one more word, you're asking for that. So I would keep up. You've heard this one or you've done this one. You know, keep it up. You already lost your video games for 1 week. You want to make it 2, and your strong-willed child's going to be like, let's make it 4. And inside, then you'll drop the F-bomb, like, why do we have kids, right? Because this is tough. How many of you occasionally drop F-bombs on your kids or when you're parenting? I'm just checking out the honesty. I like it. The rest of you are lying. So I'm just kidding. It's normal. Family life is supposed to be difficult. If it's difficult, you're normal. We said that, the first family. This is before video games. The first kid murdered his brother. It's been awful since the beginning. So look, the first thing, Adam, don't eat from the tree. He eats from the tree. Then what does he do? He blames his wife. This stuff is not new, right? So it's not like it's like our modern day society. It's been horrible from the beginning because we're all flawed and broken. So I would do that whole thing, and watch, this is going to sting a little bit. I like things to sting a little bit. I don't do blame or guilt, but I like it to sting a little bit. When I was doing that to my son, you know what I was doing? I was provoking him to anger. Because everybody quotes scripture in parenting, kids, respect your parents. And nobody ever quotes, fathers, mothers, do not provoke your children to anger. And we do it 2 ways. One, well, more than that. But part of it was when I was doing, keep it up, young man, keep it up. I could see on his face when he was young, he was gone emotionally. You know what I'm saying? Eyes are all lit up, his face is all red, and I knew it. And I just keep going and do this. And I was escalating things and I was provoking him to anger. And I didn't know at the time, you know why I did it? Because I eventually wanted him to say something really horrible. So when I walked back downstairs, I could tell my wife, did you hear what your son just said to me? So I could justify it. But this is the part that's going to sting. Watch what was really happening. What I was really saying to my son was this: I need you to behave, because if you don't behave and do what I tell you to do, I'm not sure I can behave. You do not want to see me angry. Does that make sense? That's what I was really saying. This just popped in my mind. This is a really deeper thing that I want you to wrestle with. I want you to wrestle with your view of God. Because there are people in here that my view of God was shaped by my father. My father never told me once he was proud of me. My dad was law. He's total law kind of guy. And so I've had to battle my whole life viewing God and understanding grace, because it was never good enough for my dad. So if you're like that, and I guarantee 30, 40% of you, maybe more, are, and so it's like, you never quite pray enough. You never quite do enough. You never quite do enough. And so you have that little thing in you that's like, God's never quite really pleased with you. That will bleed over into your parenting big time. Because you will, and I may do something on obedience tomorrow, because that's a big code word for me when I hear it, like, obedience. Usually it's someone who, and anyway, I'll save it for tomorrow, but a lot of times what I hear is very law-based parenting. And usually that's the way you view God. So I just encourage you to wrestle with that, because it makes a huge difference in how you parent your kids, because we tend to parent how we think God parents us. Does that make sense? It's a really interesting dynamic to wrestle with. So I was dependent on my son because I was saying, you need to behave or I'm going to lose it, right? I don't want that to happen, because I want your kids to trust you and come to you. And underneath all of this, look, the reason I'm not a big fan of the word obedience is because I like the word trust better. I don't obey God because I'm afraid he's going to send me to some bad place. I listen to God because I trust him. It has a different feel to it, right? Because obedience is a little bit more of like, I have to, and it's a duty to do it. Trust is, I have a good father who believes the best and wants the best for me, and so therefore I can follow him and do what he says, not because I'm afraid of him, but because I trust that he's good to me. Does that make sense? And that's what I ultimately want for all of us, both in this way and then with our kids. And so, watch the other provoking thing, and it's going to sting a little bit too, talking too much. Some of us talk way too much. I send out a newsletter every year, twice a year, and the subject line is, shut up. Because sometimes you have to get through to people. Like, you're just talking too much. It's too many words. Like, stop. Just stop. Because that's provoking. Well, I don't think you are. I just need to tell you one more time. And that's my own anxiety, right? So here's a different way to handle this. So we've got to de-escalate first. How do you de-escalate? The phrase that we use is motion changes emotion. So motion or movement is a tool to help a child calm down. And I'll show you why. Because many of us, we do way too many words. Honey, use your words, use your words. And what your kids are thinking is, you don't want to hear my words right now, because I'll get grounded for those words. You can't process language when you're upset. A little caveat here. Sometimes modern day parents, we do that whole psychology thing of like, let's identify your emotions. Moms, you're having a bad day. You want your husband coming home saying, honey, let's identify your emotions. Do you want to talk? And she's like, right now I'm identifying hatred for you, right? Who wants to always point out your emotions? You know what I mean? Like in this moment, I don't need to know what his emotions are. I know. He's frustrated and he's angry. What I need to focus on is giving him tools to deal with the frustration and anger, not just talk about it. One other aside, my wife is a therapist. I believe in therapy. Some therapy is phenomenal, but sometimes it's really hurtful. And you've got to watch that, because bringing a child in to talk to a therapist every week about anxiety Well, often kids cause kids to have more anxiety. Let's talk about your anxiety. What? No, I'd rather, and some of you your kids need that, so you're gonna have to decide where that is. But what I'd rather do is normalize certain things. Of course you're anxious sometimes. It's a normal part of being human. We're making everything overly therapized these days, like, oh, well, I'm depressed. And some people have true depression. Some people, they're just having bad days or weeks or bad circumstances. But if you go and talk to someone, then you're gonna walk out, your kids are gonna walk out thinking, there's something wrong with me. And for most of your kids, there's nothing wrong with them. They just don't fit in, or they're strong-willed, which definitely means they don't fit in, because they're going to do everything opposite of the right way to do it in school and in society. And we'll get into that tomorrow of how to help these kids, but they feel like they're swimming upstream. You're going to have to help with them with that. But anyway, there's my little aside with that. So I like the motion. Movement is a good thing. So let's do this example. So instead, I come into the room, and I come in with a little intensity. I like intensity with intense kids. Intensity plus intensity sometimes is very calming. Not intensity like, you better stop now, but intensity toward problem solving. So I come in the room, hey, Christian, I can tell you're frustrated. Listen, I've got a football, nonverbal. When you're ready, if you want to come outside, I'll play catch with you, help you with whatever you're struggling with. Hey, Christian, I can tell you're upset. I'm going to dump some Legos on in the floor in the living room. When you're ready, if you want to come in, we'll build a really cool spaceship. Let's break this down. I'm coming in with a little bit of intensity. I'm moving, and I'm getting him to move. I acknowledge right away, hey, get that you're frustrated. It's just a nice thing to acknowledge what you're going through. Don't spend a lot of time on it. I like nonverbals with strong-willed kids because I would give you two. The football thing I used in my house with those kids all the time because they didn't want to talk about their emotions. Casey with his mom had, they always had this thing, if he drank coffee from a young age, I don't know why. He was a weird little kid and he liked the caffeine. It was good for him because he's a really hyper kid and it calmed him down. But whatever. But so he had a code word in middle school because most middle schoolers aren't going to come home and say, Mother, I had a really tough day at school. Would you like to talk to me? It's just odd. So he'd come home and I bought them little Dunkin' Donuts coffee mugs. Tiny little ones for a Christmas ornament. So he'd come home and just hold up his coffee mug, and that meant I need to talk. With me, he'd grab a football, right? Instead of saying like, Father, I could use some of your wisdom now. They're not going to do that. But when he held up the football, then it was like, okay, I know my son needs me. And now, watch, I like the nonverbal. I like going outside when you can. You can't always do that, but I like it because fresh air. Now, it gives me a little bit of movement as the father. Why? Because I need to calm down because I want to wring his little neck right now. Now he comes outside, we can play catch, right? I can throw the little ball a little bit hard at his face, just a little passive-aggressive, but, right? And he doesn't know. And I'm like, hey, go deep, button hook, hey, good catch. And in the process of doing that, I'm calming down, he's calming down, right? Now, here's a huge thing that I want us to see. It's massive. That sounds dumb. It's not massive. It's huge, though. It's hugely important. I'm now together with my son. Typically, you know what? Go to your room right now. Nothing wrong with that, except inadvertently, I just sent my son away from the very person who has the wisdom to help him. Does that make sense? But if I'm building with Legos on the floor, or coloring, or building something, because many of your kids are good at building stuff, they're very tactile. So use that to your advantage. And I'm playing catch with them. Watch the message that I'm sending to my son. When your world is out of control, mine's not. I can handle you at your worst. Think about how God handles us when we're having bad days. Is he like, you know what, you need to go to your room, get your attitude together, and then come talk to me respectfully? No, he says, in that moment when you're most out of control, when you're most distraught, when you're most feeling, come to me boldly. And I want your kids, when they're 4 and 8 and 13 and in their teen years especially, when they're going through rough times, I want them coming to you, not posting stuff on Facebook and not going to their teenage friends because their teenage friends have horrible advice. But if every time they come to you, you're going to do this thing, you know what? How many times have I told you not to do that? Right? They're not going to come to you. What? Right? That sends them away. I want them to know when something's going wrong and you're facing the toughest stuff, I'm the safe place because I can control myself, and when your world's out of control, does that make sense? It's a cool thing. Look, there are hundreds of examples of how you calm them and draw them in, but I like an activity because it tends to be better than, hey, we need to talk about your emotions. Most people don't like doing that. So let me do this. So anyway, let's do a quick little discipline thing here. Finish up this story. So now Christian and I are outside and we're playing catch and we're both calmed down. Now I can get to the discipline. Discipline means to teach. I like these phrases. So Christian, that thing back inside where you're yelling at your mom, a couple things I know. I know that you know yelling at your mother, not happening in our home, inappropriate. I like that phrase, and I know it sounds kind of stupid, but try it with your kids. I know you know that's wrong. Because here's the opposite in what we usually do. What were you thinking? How many times do I have to tell you? If you think about those phrases literally mean you're an idiot, right? How many times do I have to tell you? You're so stupid, right? But out of our frustration, I know you know that's wrong. Look, here's the thing with discipline. Your kids already know that what they did is wrong from a young age. How many of you have kids who lie about stuff? Good. Lying shows that they have a conscience. For most of your strong-willed kids, it's not an integrity issue, so don't get freaked out. Here's what it is. I have impulse control issues, I've got an agenda, I want to get stuff done, and I just do stuff. And then I realize, I'm going to be in trouble. Well, they should just fess up to it. Who does? You don't, and I don't. We make up all kinds of stuff. Adam, who ate from the tree? She made me do it. Right? It's human nature. So the key to that lying is not an integrity issue most of the time. It's the fact that we have to teach them and show them how to be successful and how to make good choices instead of stop doing that or else. That literally usually doesn't work that well. And it's not the best motivation. So anyway, where was I? Thank you. You were like the teacher's pet. Don't you feel good? So she's like, I don't care. That's why my daughter has a bad attitude too. So anyway. So look, I know you know that's wrong. I also know that you know when you yell at your mother, hit your sister, lie, it always brings dire consequences. And yet you did it anyway. So I'm curious. I love the phrase, I'm curious. It is a phenomenal phrase, a conversation builder. Look, if you're not wise enough to discuss politics with other people of the opposing faith, right, it devolves, right? Well, why would you believe that? Clearly you hate America, right? That's not really constructive. But if I am meeting someone and they have a totally different point of view and I say, look, my worldview is a little bit different. I'm curious. What in your experience has led you to that viewpoint? They're going to open up and tell me. Just saying like, well, why would you believe that? Right? Shuts it down. I'm curious with your spouse. Look, see if this makes sense. Sorry if this messes up the film thing. Typical discipline is this. Becomes me against you, right? Like how many times do I have to tell you, it's me against you and I need you to get to behave. When I say I'm curious, it's like I'm coming alongside my son and I'm a resource for you. And I'm saying, look, the stuff that you're doing, it doesn't hurt me. It's not hurting your mom, okay? It's hurting you. You're losing your stuff, so I'm curious if you know it's wrong and since you know that you're going to lose all your stuff, what else is going on? Now, do you always have to do that? No. And tomorrow we'll do a whole bunch of range of different discipline stuff because it's not all about talking like, what was the root of that? Because most of the root of it is, I just didn't want to do what you wanted me to do, right? Or the tantrum was, I wanted the fruit snacks and you said no. So it's not like, I'm curious, what's going on? You don't have to use it all the time, but in emotional situations, I want to figure it out. So what I heard from my son often was, well, Dad, I held it together all day at school, but then when I came home, how many of your kids do that? And then when they come home, they unload on someone. So I said, okay, I get that. So 2 things. I also know you know the right thing to do now, which is go apologize to your mom. He knew. grab your backpack. We're going to go out through the front door, and I'm going to show you 3 different ways to deal with your frustration so that tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, when you come home frustrated at school, because you're always going to be frustrated at school, because I know it feels like jail to you, right? Because many of your kids, that's how it feels. Instead of coming home every day and taking out on mom, I'll show you how to deal with that. See, I just taught him something, right? So a couple quick things for those of you with kids like this after school. If your kids don't like school, don't ask them, how was your day? How was your day at that place where you're on red on the behavior chart and don't have any friends? How is it today? Right? Also, watch, because they feel pressure all the time. Hey, how'd you do? How'd you do on that test? And watch all the parental anxiety. I need you to know that you did well on the test so that you graduate, so you get a good grade, so you graduate next year, so you're going to graduate, and so you can go to college, so that you can get a job, and so you can get a spouse. And that's all tied up sometimes in this whole thing, and it's too much pressure. So for younger kids, treasure hunt after school. Hey, hid something in the backyard, bet you can't find it next 7.5 minutes. This is a good one. Say dad's home, mom's on the way home from work. Hey, why don't we hide something in the basement when mom gets home? Let's see if she can find it. Kids love stumping their parents, and it gives them something they're in control of, because at school, they're not in control of anything. For older kids, your middle school, high school kids, here's your conversation. Look, here's a typical conversation. Hey, how was school today? Fine. Got any homework? Nope. Okay, guess I'll talk to you tomorrow, right? But if you do this one after school, hey, something happened to me today. Tell them a story, something happened to you today at the office, at the post office, the grocery store, and I'm curious, what would you do if you were in my situation? See, at school all day, they're being told what to do all day long and regurgitate. And now I just ask you for your opinion, and they'll open up, and once they open up, then you can get into other stuff. Does that make sense? One more for your teens. Next time they tell you something important, don't jump down their throat with a lecture. Oh, that reminds me of lecture 46B as a parent on how to choose good friends, right? Try this, it's really cool. Instead, say this. Hey, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Listen, I've got to go get started on dinner. If you want to come grab me later, I'd love to share some of my thoughts with you about that. And I'm walking away so that they eventually come to you. Now, here's your warning. They're going to come to you. Okay, Mom, what are your stupid ideas? And for some of your kids, that's borderline respectful, right? You're going to be like, not bad for you. And then you share, but they came with their hearts open to you. Does that make sense? So what we're going to do tomorrow, yes, sir. Did you need something? Okay, we can do that tomorrow. Okay, hold on just a second. I just want to look because I've got 8 minutes. I've got 7 minutes and 54 seconds, 53, 52. I'm a little bit oppositional, so I'm going to go a little bit over. No, I won't. Are your kids in childcare here? Oh, good. How many of you aren't even going home tonight? There you go. That's awesome. How many of you told the babysitter, do what? I have a question. Does Pastor preach too long, or is he pretty good? Perfect. You know what I get on my pastor about? He'll preach the whole time. Sorry if this offends you. And then the prayer at the end is basically a regurgitation of his lecture, of his sermon, right? You know those ones? God, help us to remember points 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm like, just say God bless us, we heard, then we're out of there, right? Because I leave early from church. I don't need to hear the prayer. I already heard your long sermon. So, especially with a crowded parking lot like this, forget it. So, half the people are like, I don't think he's really a Christian. So, we get that at homeschool conventions. They come up and ask, is your dad really a Christian? And he'll be like, obviously not your kind. Anyway. He had a guy in Cincinnati. He was 17, 6'4". So does your dad still spank you? And my son was like, look at me. I'm 6'4", and no, 6'2", whatever he is. He just looks tall. So we couldn't. It was too hard holding him down from a young age. How many of you did that, right? I'm supposed to do this calmly, and he's wriggling around. And then I realized it just didn't work with the strong-willed kids, so we did it a different way, and I'll share that tomorrow. So, anyway, I just don't want, anyway, I hate doing the spanking thing because people are like, oh, it's scripture. And I'm like, okay, well then you've got to start beating grown adults who are fools, because stripes for the right for the backs of fools. You want to go scripture? I can go hardcore law all day long. I love the law. It makes me feel all kinds of proud and awesome, right? When I post stuff on our Facebook page that's very tough parenting, I get like 400 likes. People love that. When I do something about like learn about your kids and be curious, it's like crickets, right? Because people love the law. It feels very comfortable. Yep, you're the authority figure. By the way, remind me to hit on that. We've got this idea in the church somewhere, and it came in through the church, and it's not healthy, of like, well, I'm the authority figure. People love that. You're the authority figure. And we got this thing that the authority figure is supposed to boss other people around. The authority figure is the one who serves. Jesus is the ultimate authority figure, and he got on his knees and he washed people's feet. And when they brought... I did this at the Johnson County Mental Health Services thing. I told, it's a non-Christian thingy, but I told the story because I think Jesus was kind of the first social worker when they bring the woman caught in adultery to him. And watch, it's very instructive. You know what we would have done? What were you thinking, you little, right? True? Christians most judgmental people, are we not? Why do you think people don't want to be Christians half the time? Look, own this stuff. I work half the time with Christians, half not. Half of it is like, I don't want to be with those people. And I'm sorry we do that. That's partly us. It's not like, oh, they're persecuting us because we're Christians. Part is that, no, they're persecuting us because we're just horrible people sometimes. And we don't act like Jesus. True? I'm not saying you do. It's all the other churches. But it's true, right? And so Jesus, instead of lecturing her, gets down and starts drawing in the dirt because he's averting his eyes from her shame, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I just encourage you, we will do tomorrow with discipline. I'm firmly in the camp of I'm the authority figure in the home. But that means I serve. In the first part of my marriage, you know what my mother-in-law told me and told my wife? Honey, you better take care of that man or someone else will. It's a horrible thing. Seriously. I mean, it was great for me and early in the marriage. I was like, yeah, listen to your mom. Give me something to eat. Right? But we've got it wrong in the church because, look, I'm the one who has there's another one of those scriptures. Wives, submit to your husbands. The men have the harder part. Lay down your life for your wife the way Jesus did for the church. I have the harder part. When I lay down my life for my wife, it'll be really easy for her to trust me because I first laid down my life for her. And when my kids see me laying down my life and handling things with grace and mercy and patiently, they'll listen to me not because I'm your father, but because I'm a dad you can trust. Does that make sense? And that's where we're going to go kind of tomorrow because it's a beautiful thing. So I'm going to do an announcement. And I've got 2 minutes and 26 seconds to do this. And I'll do it tomorrow, but we're going to do something special here. And I hope this always sounds weird in churches. Like, I'm going to announce our products that we have. Okay? Got 2 minutes. So here's the deal. We have audio CDs. Most of you don't have CD players in your cars, so they come as instant downloads. You can download them multiple devices. You can share them with your judgmental parents, with other people. I don't care. Right? But I want your kids to look, I've done audio for a long time for this reason. You have to hear stuff again and again and again and again. Because everybody comes to our workshops, they take notes, and then 3 days later I get, we lasted about 23 seconds before we freaked out on the kids. You've got to hear it again and again, but I want your kids to listen. Here's how you do it. Hey, strong-willed child, parenting secrets to get you to behave. You don't get to listen. And immediately your oppositional child will download these to their iPhone and they'll listen. And they'll get it very quickly, but they're going to hold you accountable and say, Mom, Dad, you're not doing it the way Calm Guy said. You'd be like, seriously, you're 5, but it's cool. So here's what we put together very quickly. This is on enjoying your strong-willed child, stopping power struggles. Everything I know about strong-willed kids for 20 years. I love for kids to listen to this because they feel like someone understands them. Little nugget for some of you with older kids. Go home and ask them this tonight. Does it ever feel like we misjudge your motives? That's a huge trigger for a strong-willed child. Discipline that works, we'll do some off of this tomorrow. Two big themes: getting kids to listen the first time without begging or screaming, teaching impulse control. We go through about 35 different behaviors. Stop defiance, disrespect, and meltdowns. Emotional power struggles. What do you do? What do you say in the moment? We try to give you scripts to use for it. That's why people like our stuff. We have scripts. Straight talk for kids. This is our most popular one. My son Casey recorded this for kids to listen to, because kids don't listen to their parents, but they listen to that big tall kid talk about his struggles and how he learned to calm himself down. And he teaches your kids, if you learn how to control yourself, your parents don't have to. Straight talk for stressed out moms, self-explanatory. Try to make this like 10 therapy sessions in one, how to get control of your inner life. We just did one for dads for 2 reasons. Our dads didn't teach us this stuff. Our dads taught us how to work hard, change the oil, and hit a jump shot, but not how to have relationships. And men don't listen to their wives. But if we read something on the internet where a stranger tells us, then it's true, and we believe it. So it's my son and I talking to dads like dads. It's short and sweet, right? Bullet points. Wives, don't leave us long voicemails at work, because we won't listen. Short and sweet, and we'll listen. Sorry, but that's the truth. Ages 2 to 7 for little kids, 85 common situations. There's one on motivating kids internally. We're going to do some of that tomorrow. Final one is called ADHD University. I hate the label ADHD, but it's a quick way to say kids who struggle with focus, attention, executive function, social skills, organization. Very, very practical. Share it with teachers. So here's the deal with the CDs. You don't have to get them at all. You don't have to get them at night, but we're doing a special. Our stuff's expensive. If you look on our website, these are typically $97 or $197 each. For the skeptical men in here, these cost me $1.22 to produce. They have enormous profit margins. The reason I make them expensive is twofold. One is self-respect. We put a lot of time into this, and it will change your family, and I want people to respect it. And related to that is ownership and investment. In the early days, I was like, I'm going to save the world, and I sold everything really cheaply, and nobody listened to it. When I raised the prices, I got testimonials, because men said, we spent some money on that, maybe we should do it. There's something there when people say, we're making this a priority and we're going to change things, and they invest in it. It's just the way that it works. So here's the special that we're doing. Your handout's wrong. We change our handout every night depending whether we like the audience. Casey determines it every night. In New Jersey, they pay full price, but we do charge more there. But the handout says get any 2 sets for $197. We're doing any 2 sets for $97 or $99, whatever you want. The big change is usually we do like 5 sets for $197. We scrap that. We're doing everything on that page. So there's all of these. There's a sibling fights one, comes as a download only, and there's the marriage mentoring program. The reason we did that is most men won't go to marriage therapy. It's really helpful, but it's really hard. Men feel like we're being teamed up on, because you sit in there and there's a therapist and your wife and they've read all the books and you're like, oh, I'm just a man. And so it's really hard for us, and it costs a lot of money. So we're doing everything we have for $197. If you look on our website, it's usually like $497, $697. So it's $200. For me, it's one trip to the therapist's office, but you get about 26 hours worth of stuff. Final note, tonight, tomorrow. If you need help financially, ask for it. We help. That's called being assertive. There are single parents in here. There are people who've struggled. I don't want people ever leaving and saying, well, we wanted your stuff, you described our home, but we couldn't afford it. Be assertive and tell Casey he'll work with you financially. Now, if you're loaded, you better not do that. Pay me extra, okay? Because you need more of an investment, so pay a little. I'm kidding. We just want people to leave, because what I know over the years is when people leave with a little got calm bag, when I see them next year, there's change that happens, because he's kind of teach you and hold you accountable. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Tomorrow, I'm going to do some tough discipline stuff, so I want the men coming back, because men like tough discipline. I'm going to do that in a very even way. Pastor Tim Dunn, come up right now. You're late, because it's on the screen right now. Just come on up, because I'm wasting too much time. So we're going to do that, motivating kids. I'm going to stay afterwards tonight if you have questions, and tomorrow I'll be around. We'll do a lot of Q&A, but thank you for investing the time in your kids. I hope all of your kids, if you see them tonight, I hope they have a meltdown before they go to bed so you can practice this while it's fresh. Pastor, thank you.
So I'm remembering why he cut through the noise when I heard him. It was not linear. You think we're OCD, but I just remember feeling like it was hitting me from all different directions, and the effect it had on me was I wanted to go see my kids, and I'm having the same thing right now. So I appreciate it. I hope you'll come back tonight, and our hope is just to help you, to give you hope, and to give you some tools. So hopefully you will. I know you'll have some good conversations tonight. So stick around. Hopefully you got a babysitter. Stick around. We have food and drinks and tables, and have some good conversations. And then tomorrow we're going to start at 8 a.m. Okay, I know it's a little bit early. Breakfast is from 8 to 9. And so if you want to sleep in a little bit and just come and catch the last 15 minutes, we're going to shut down breakfast probably at like 8:50. So get here at 8:45, load your plate up, and come on in, and then just come ready to learn and ready to think and ready to get helped. Okay? Are we good? Okay, was that helpful? All right, good deal. Let me pray for you, and thank God for the food, and then we'll have some fun. God, we love you. Thank you for the things that we're learning. God, again, we thank you for our kids. And thank you, God, just for the honesty tonight. Just speaking to where a lot of us are and how a lot of us feel. And we know, God, that the things that are true set us free. And so we thank you for that as well. We pray that you'll be at work in our homes. Thank you for the time that we're about to have, the food we're about to share. We love you tonight, God, and pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, have fun.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed Parenting Conference today. Be sure to join us again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for day 2.